A wise woman once said, "Things women do lie about, what they ate for lunch. Things women don't lie about." This tweet, issued by feminist icon Lena Dunham, came just 2 months before an actress by the name of Aurora Perrineau had accused and filed a police report against a writer on Dunham's equally acclaimed and derided HBO show Girls for allegedly essaying her in 2012 when she was 17. This writer was named Murray Miller. Aurora says that when she met Murray one night at a hotel, she told him repeatedly that she was 17, but he proceeded to flirt with her knowing this information. At one point, Miller got drunk and was self-aware of his drunken state, and so they got a ride to his place. Aurora felt pressured to go along with what was happening, and describes waking up to him assaulting her. These allegations came around the dawn of the Me Too movement. They came a month after Lena had just written an op-ed in the New York Times titled "Harvey Weinstein and the Silence of Men." But they also came just a few months after Lena Dunham's famous HBO series had come to an end after 6 seasons. They came a year after Lena Dunham did an interview in her newsletter Lenny Letter with her friend Amy Schumer, where she jokingly recounted feeling ignored by famous black football player Odell Beckham Jr. while attending the Met Gala. They came after years of Lena's casual racism being put on full display. They came after many a foot-and-mouth moment that she responded to with apology after apology. By the time these allegations came to light, people had pretty much had it with Lena Dunham, and as if she wanted to add fuel to the fire, she and Jenny Connor, who also worked as an executive producer on Girls, publicly called Aurora Perrineau, a biracial woman, a false rape accuser. They sent in a statement to The Hollywood Reporter saying, quote, "During the windfall of deeply necessary accusations over the last few months in Hollywood, we have been thrilled to see so many women's voices heard and dark experiences in this industry justified. It's a hugely important time of change, and, like every feminist in Hollywood and beyond, we celebrate. But during every time of change, there are also incidences of culture, and its enthusiasm and zeal, taking down the wrong targets. We believe, having worked closely with him for more than half a decade, that this is the case with Murray Miller. While our first instinct is to listen to every woman's story, our insider knowledge of Murray's situation makes us confident that, sadly, this accusation is one of the 3% of assault cases that are misreported every year. It is a true shame to add to that number, as outside of Hollywood, women still struggle to be believed. We stand by Murray, and this is all we'll be saying about this issue." Unquote. Backlash ensued. And despite claiming to have insider knowledge that allegedly discredited Aurora's account, Lena revealed a year later in an apology statement issued to The Hollywood Reporter that she did not in fact have any insider knowledge and admitted to making a terrible mistake. "I didn't have the insider information I claimed, but rather blind faith in a story that kept slipping and changing and revealed itself to mean nothing at all. I wanted to feel my workplace and my world were safe, untouched by the outside world, a privilege in and of itself, the privilege of ignoring what hasn't hurt you. And I claim that safety at cost to someone else, someone very special. To Aurora, you have been on my mind and in my heart every day this year. I love you. I will always love you. I will always work to right that wrong. In that way, you have made me a better woman and a better feminist. You shouldn't have been given that job in addition to your other burdens. But here we are. And here I am asking, how do we move forward? Not just you and I, but all of us, living in the gray space between admission and vindication. It's painful to realize that while I thought I was self-aware, I had actually internalized the dominant male agenda that asked us to defend it no matter what, protect it no matter what, baby it no matter what. Something in me feels compelled to do that job. To please, to tidy up, to shopkeep. My job now is to excavate that part of myself and to create a new cavern inside me where a candle stays lit, always safely lit, and illuminates the wall behind it where these words are written. I see you, Aurora. I hear you, Aurora. I believe you, Aurora. But see, the damage had already been done. Lena for years had been known as a very outspoken feminist. She had a podcast called Women of the Hour that began in 2015, where she talked about women's issues like SA, reproductive rights, and body positivity. Her show Girls, a millennial update to Sex and the City, was praised for its portrayal of young women and for being a show centered around young women and their coming-of-age moments or lack thereof. She was praised for being able to be the head of her own TV show and for supposedly representing real women, which has become a cursed phrase on this channel. Lena had also been on the receiving end of misogynistic, anti-feminist criticism from men and conservatives. She was fat-shamed and received backlash for going commando regularly in the TVMA series. Her not being fuckable enough is what baffled people, in particular an episode in which her character has sex with Patrick Wilson. Her name had become synonymous with the word annoying, and people struggled to differentiate her from her girl's character, Hannah Horvath. But in 2014, after the release of her memoir, Not That Kind of Girl, a young woman tells you what she's learned. Things only got worse when Lena was then accused of her younger sister in a passage that has not only been taken out of context, but has gone through the internet telephone machine. Suddenly, everyone who hated her used the molestation claims as their defense, as they felt it proved that not only was she annoying, she was actually a terrible person. From the beginning, things always seemed to be stacked up against Lena, but the Aurora Perrineau story revealed that Lena's feminist preachings may have just been for show. For many who weren't conservatives but were feminists and leftists themselves, saw Lena Dunham as the epitome of white feminism and hipster racism, a type of racism that dresses itself up as satirical and ironic, but in reality, it's just being racist with, like, an edge. We will also return to this later. But I think what truly baffles me about this whole thing is the statement Lena put out immediately after these allegations came to surface. That tweet that I shared in the beginning, where she declares that women do not lie about SA, that tweet was put out in August of 2017. The New York Times op-ed came out in October of 2017. But in November of 2017, when her colleague was accused of SA, instead of waiting for more information or maybe reaching out to Aurora and hearing her account of the events, she and Jenny Connor decided to publicly accuse this woman of being a false accuser. That to me is just wild. Not even just from a morality standpoint, but from an optics standpoint. Did they seriously not think about how this would be perceived at the height of Me Too? It would have been one thing had they both said, you know, we don't have a lot of information, we're choosing not to comment at this time or something. Even if they truly didn't believe her, that's better than immediately coming to the conclusion that she was lying and publicly putting that out into the world. Also, keep in mind that they accuse this woman of lying while lying themselves in their own statement. They say due to their insider knowledge, they confidently believe that this is one of the few cases where someone has lied about assault. But then in her apology, she says she didn't have any insider knowledge and just assumed it was a lie because she couldn't believe that her friend and colleague could have done such a thing. I'm not trying to say that her having this relationship with him wouldn't complicate things. If I worked with someone closely for years and someone accused them of assault, it would probably be jarring for me at first. But Lena has said that women do not lie about these things, so why jump to that conclusion so quickly if you honestly believe that? Why put out a whole ass public statement accusing a woman of color of lying about? Did you seriously not understand what that would mean for her? Do you understand what happens to women who have not only come forward about SA, but are suspected of lying about their allegations? As Biba Kang wrote in an independent article in 2018, of course we're all capable of moral messiness. And Dunham's apology is better than silence. But her complete denial of another woman's accusation, and by her own admission, total disregard for the truth, is more serious than your average celebrity gaffe or misstep. Lena may be known as the foot and mouth queen, but she's also known as the apology queen. There's an entire X account dedicated to her apologies. But a common theme in Lena's many apologies is the performance of holding oneself accountable. In her apology to Odell Beckham Jr., who, God bless him, didn't respond to any of her foolishness, she said that she felt insecure being surrounded by beautiful actresses and then projected that onto him. She claims she never intended to contribute to the over-sexualization of black male bodies. Lena clearly felt that being self-aware of her mistakes and letting people know that she's still learning and growing was enough to absolve her of her actions. And while it is great to be self-aware, and yeah, nobody's perfect, as Hannah Montana once sang, Lena's accountability started to feel more like a performance. A way to stay in people's good graces while still wearing the feminist badge proudly. The problem, however, is that her apology to Odell Beckham Jr. came after a series of tweets where she wasn't so apologetic, nor was she willing to hold herself accountable for anything. She tweeted about how Beckham was stylish, but wasn't too eager to chat it up with her. In another tweet, she said her story was more about being insecure as an average-bodied woman. And in her last tweet, in which she tagged her friend Amy Schumer, she said, "Glad the outrage machine war's on though, right?" So like most people who have been rightfully accused of doing something racist or inappropriate or unnecessary, she decided to jump on the people just want to be outraged train. It's a classic strategy used by people who don't want to engage with the criticism that is being lobbied at them. Not that people don't enjoy jumping on hateful bandwagons and joining in on the dunking of someone for the fun of it, but this entire thing was just weird. Like very, very weird human behavior. Being insecure about your body is understandable and relatable and common. I can't imagine how I would feel going to the Met Gala as a small, fat person, but then why not just say being around a bunch of skinny people made me feel a type of way? Why did you have to drag Odell Beckham Jr. into it? That fact that she wasn't aware of the racial implications of putting this out into the world was proof that while Lena claimed to care about feminism and intersectionality, she didn't really. Because if she was hip to intersectionality or white privilege or, casual racism and the complex ways white people participate in it, she wouldn't have put this out in her newsletter. She says, "You and I were literally sitting across from each other at the Met Ball, and it was so surreal to get to do that. I was sitting next to Odell Beckham Jr., and it was so amazing because it was like he looked at me and he determined I was not the shape of a woman by his standards. He was like, that's a marshmallow, that's a child, that's a dog. It wasn't mean, he just seemed confused. The vibe was very much like, is it wearing yep, it's wearing a tuxedo. I'm going to go back to my cell phone. It was like we were forced to be together, and he literally was scrolling Instagram rather than have to look at a woman in a bow tie. I was like, this should be called the Metropolitan Museum of Getting Rejected by Athletes."
What?
You could have just had this conversation with your friend in private, girl. No, she didn't accuse him of being like an asshole necessarily, but she dragged him into her own personal bullshit and put it on display for everyone to see. Then doubled down on it when she faced criticism for it until she realized how racist this came off and knew she needed to apologize. But apologies can only do so much. Talk is cheap, as they say, and if you're constantly apologizing for being tone deaf, ignorant, and for lacking self-awareness or tact, have you actually learned anything? Casual, semi-ironic hipster racism would certainly fit the pattern that Dunham has established for herself. It would also suggest that her chronic scandal problem isn't just an unfortunate byproduct of her tendency to put her foot in her mouth, but a consequence of a more deeply entrenched worldview. And Dunham's knee-jerk reaction to the accusations against Miller would seem to suggest that her feminism is less a philosophy to which she is committed than a brand from which she is willing to profit when it is convenient to her, and abandon when it is not. No one's feminism is ever going to be completely pure. But Dunham's keeps revealing more and more flaws. After Lena publicly called Aurora Perrineau a false rape accuser, Zinzi Clemens, who attended the same university as Lena Dunham and also wrote pieces for the Lenny Letter, quickly quit the publication after Lena and Jenny's statement was published in the Hollywood Reporter. She accused Lena of hipster racism and then urged other women of color to cut ties with Lena Dunham. "She cannot have our words if she cannot respect us," Clemens wrote. Zinzi also spoke to the fact that she ran in the same circles as Lena Dunham and noticed how the people she hung around with engaged in hipster racism and mentioned how one white girl enjoyed touting the N-word and defending it by saying it was just a joke, bro. Zinzi calling for women of color to divest from Lena Dunham, I think, was the true nail in the coffin. Before, people who were fans and feminists themselves often defended Lena. They knew she was a bit weird and that she had a tendency to physically stick her foot directly into her mouth, but she meant well, right? She's an outspoken feminist. She has a real body. And the people criticizing her are just misogynistic, fatphobic assholes. She was constantly given the benefit of the doubt, not just because her behavior could be easily brushed off by some as weird, but because she wasn't afraid to apologize for her misdeeds. But this incident had peeled back the curtain. And listen, when you lose the black woman vote, it's basically over for you. Think back to how black women came to Terry Crews's defense when he publicly accused a man of assaulting him at a party in 2016. But then when Gabrielle Union made claims of racial discrimination on the set of America's Got Talent, in which they both co-starred, he did not have her back in the same way black women had had his back. He has since publicly apologized to her for this, but alas, the damage was done. Terry threw a black woman under the bus in order to stay in white people's good graces, and we were like,
well, fuck you.
The same more or less happened with Lena Dunham, because this did seem to really take the air out of her. And while she remains working in Hollywood to this day and continues to make her own films, and she continued to do weird shit like this, or this, her cultural presence and relevancy has declined dramatically. And while I am a feminist and I try to look at things with nuance and I want to be as empathetic as I can to people even when they have said and done horrible things, I can't say I'm sad about this. Not because I agree with the people who hated her because they thought she was ugly, and not because I enjoy watching a woman fall. I don't. And if you don't believe me, well, here's something you should know. I used to be a Lena Dunham fan and ardent defender. I discovered her existence around 2015, and mind you, at the time, as I discussed in my Vampire Diaries video, I was not on social media as much, so I genuinely was not aware of all of Lena's past transgressions. What I was aware of is the people who hated her for reasons that didn't sit right with me. While I wasn't on social media as much, I have always been on YouTube. Since I was a kid, it has always been the main site that I visit when I'm on the internet, and I would almost always go to the comment section on most videos I watch. There is something about certain social media sites where you can't help but go and read the comments, even when you know something sinister may be lurking underneath. Seriously. Something I noticed was how common it was to see the comment section almost entirely full of hateful and sexist comments under any video that featured Lena Dunham. I would see jokes about her being fat and ugly and annoying, or if the video was about girls, they would say how Adam Driver would never go for someone like her in real life and how Girls the show sucked and he was the only good thing to come out of it. It felt like, and well, was, an obvious prejudice against someone for, again, not being fuckable by society's strict beauty standards, and for being an outspoken feminist. And well, the physical appearances of feminists have always been used as a weapon against them and the movement's legitimacy. And also, people just hate feminists. So to me, it felt familiar. I had only recently begun identifying as a feminist, and as I mentioned in my body positivity video, I came of age during the height of pop feminism and choice feminism. This version of feminism did not address intersectionality, so I wasn't well informed on the complex history or issues with the feminist movement. I didn't exactly come from a feminist household, but I was still very passionate about it. I am also a woman who is aware of how misogyny plays out in the world and on the internet, and when I see a woman, regardless of race, regardless of size, being relentlessly attacked for very sexist and fatphobic reasons, I have to pause. I felt weird being mad at Lena because it felt like she dealt with enough unnecessary hatred and was worth holding on to. It wasn't until I finally learned about what white feminism was that I started to see the cracks in Lena's politics. I started to see how self-centered she was in her politics and how that selfishness had become apparent in the most egregious way when she publicly spoke out against Aurora Perrineau. Going back to that Biba King article, she smartly points out the flaws in Lena's apology. While Lena admitted to having internalized misogyny and scolded herself for not believing a woman who was assaulted when she herself had also experienced SA, she did not once mention the actual elephant in the room: race. I believe that by failing to explicitly address that it may have been white privilege as well as patriarchal values which influenced her denial of Perrineau's accusations, in my mind, Dunham's apology falls short. There is something sinister about the fact that this has now become Dunham's story of growth and evolution, rather than Perrineau's story of mistreatment. Perhaps Perrineau didn't want to write an op-ed or go on stage at a ceremony. Maybe she understandably didn't want to relive her trauma. But it still feels wrong that her harrowing experience has become Dunham's platform. Black women are too frequently treated like a tool for the education and growth of white and non-black women. They have to endure the ignorance and unkindness, and then are expected to be grateful for an apology that often has more to do with public image than genuine contrition. So, do y'all remember Time's Up? Feels like that happened like a million jillion years ago now, because not only did it happen pre-pandemic, it felt more like a moment that burned out pretty fast more than anything else because it doesn't exist anymore, probably for good reason. Essentially, it was a non-profit organization started in 2018 and brought to the mainstream by Hollywood celebrities. This of course came after the Weinstein allegations, along with a wave of other SA and harassment allegations against powerful men in Hollywood, mainly from actresses, many of whom had been blackballed and silenced for years by these men. At the 2018 Golden Globes, celebrities showed their support on the red carpet by wearing Time's Up pins, and good old Lena Dunham, who just 2 months before publicly accused a woman of color of lying about SA, decided to show up for a little photo op. In a now since deleted post, Tessa Thompson posted a picture of herself alongside multiple actresses like Amy Poehler, Laura Dern, Tracee Ellis Ross, Susan Sarandon, America Ferrera, and others, all wearing Time's Up t-shirts. Both Tessa and Lena posted the same picture to their accounts, but once this was posted, they both saw a flurry of negative comments who were upset about Lena's presence in the photo, considering the very recent controversy. Tessa commented in the now deleted post that Lena was not anywhere present in our group during the countless hours of work for the last 2 months. We hosted an open house for actresses for red carpet messaging, and Lena's presence was a surprise to us all. Now, by the time this took place, I was very much on Twitter, and I remember watching it unfold as it was happening. I remember seeing people tweeting about it and making jokes about Lena, essentially like photobombing their picture. I think this was when I really started to feel uncomfortable about her, because I weirdly hadn't heard much about the Aurora allegations at the time, and so I wasn't as informed as I am now on what she did just before the Golden Globes, and wow, doesn't that reveal so much about her? I can't help but see this as so fucking self-serving. Clearly just wanted to be a part of a moment, but didn't want to contribute any work to it. Her apology to Aurora came almost 11 months after this Time's Up thing started. 11 months after this photo. But here she was inserting herself in a picture of women representing an organization that was meant to help raise money for victims of SA. Now listen, Time's Up is not without criticism, and I'll link sources below that explain why, because I just don't feel like talking about that right now. But this happened before we knew about any of the problems within it. This moment signified, probably even to her, that time was not only up on SA, but on her as well. Now, what about her little friend?
I'm not used to this kind of attention. I mean, when I was younger, I never got attention from guys. But then, you know, the old story. I got the braces off of my legs, and like, I used to sleep with Hispanic guys, but now I just prefer consensual. I don't know. It was awesome. I mean, I thought the freshman 15 was how many guys you were supposed to sleep with, but gained it. It takes me 90 minutes to look this mediocre. 90 minutes. I'm probably like 160 pounds right now, and I can catch a dick whenever I want. Like, that's the truth. But I do. But I know I have a body type. Like, I know, like, I'm not a twig. Like, if a cheerleading pyramid's being made, I know I'm a base. Like, I get right down. It's not cute. I am not fun to have sex with.
Afraid of insults. So many women don't speak up if somebody wrongs them just for fear of somebody saying something mean about you.
Amy Schumer, or as they know me in Hollywood, Melissa McCarthy, said no.
Today, somebody tweeted about me, Amy Schumer's body looks like a bag of mashed potatoes. Said, do not retouch me in this movie. Do not retouch anything. Yeah, you see my cellulite, you see my rolls.
Wouldn't it be great if cottage cheese cellulite thighs could be the norm and be, that's the girl I'm looking for.
That is the norm.
Like, is that cellulite on your foot? And I'm like, maybe.
Fine with your comedy being labeled feminist.
If I'm preaching for women's equality, then sign me up. It's so crazy that people don't identify as feminists.
I'm not just here tonight as a model, but as a mother. Not bad for a year, right? Not bad. It's been 2.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of passion out there for me, and
like, it goes both ways though.
it goes both ways. Yeah. And so I could focus on that, and it doesn't feel good when the whole internet's mad at you. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It does not feel good, and I don't wish that on anyone if they don't deserve it. But
you handle it, like, you know how to, you have thick skin.
I mean, it's been a long time that people have been coming for me. So it's just about how I'm feeling about myself.
So what, like, if we try to do a thesis of like why there are certain people that people are comfortable.
I think they're mad that I'm not thinner.
You think?
I think they're mad I'm not prettier, and that I still feel like I have a right to speak.
Really?
And I think that they don't want any woman to speak. I mean, what woman has ever opened her mouth and not
Been criticized.
been like torn to shreds?
Do you ever look at Kim Kardashian in moments like that and think like she has to deal with so much?
Yeah.
Like, even when I deal with the smallest thing, I'm like, I think of Kim.
So, I want to be clear before we get into this that I am not here to redeem Amy Schumer, nor am I here to declare that we're wrong about her actually, because given her recent controversy, we definitely were not wrong. What I am here to do is give a nuanced but very critical look at this woman who I for some reason cannot stop thinking about, but also cannot stand. Me and Ames go way back. I remember the first time I saw her was on the roast of Charlie Sheen and the roast of Roseanne Barr, though I mostly remember the Roseanne roast, and I specifically remember this one joke from her.
Look at this dais. Roseanne, Ellen, Jane, Carrie, Kate. You ladies are like the women's Olympic gymnastics team. Tired, overheated, and you don't get your periods anymore.
It's weird that an admittedly not terrible but ageist period joke would stick in my head for so long, but it did, and so did Amy. Now, I've never been big into stand-up comedy, so I was never really consuming much of Amy Schumer's content, and maybe it was because I was still in middle school and heading into high school, but I wasn't big into Comedy Central either, so I never watched her show when it was airing. But that doesn't matter. I didn't need to see those things to know who Amy Schumer was. I didn't need to physically go and watch her work because I was always hearing about it. From the beginning, all I heard was how much she sucked as a comedian, and I saw how angry this seemed to make people. I was barely able to experience her comedy without that pre-existing narrative looming in the background. But I was also reluctant to actually seek her out and see for myself because she was every fucking where. And Sarah Marshall has said this on the You're Wrong About podcast numerous times, so I'm stealing this line from her, but when people can't shut up about something or someone, I become extremely uninterested and I adamantly avoid consuming that person or thing. Partially why I was never a Belieber or a Swiftie. I don't know why. It's a little childish and petty, I know, but that's me. But even though I had no interest in watching her stuff, like Lena, I had to pause when I noticed that it was mostly men criticizing Amy. And I had to hit pause again when a lot of the criticism I saw was a mixture of body shaming, sexism, and joke theft accusations. I was a Netflix subscriber around the time Amy's comedy special, The Leather Special, dropped. For some reason I decided, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go against my principles and watch an Amy Schumer stand-up special. And I was deeply disappointed to see that the men were correct. She wasn't very funny to me. She made some jokes that made me chuckle a little, and I found some of her dark, self-deprecating humor to be relatable, as I always do. She also made a Stranger Things Barb joke about her vagina that was kind of funny, but she never made me like LOL, if you will.
I was in the bathroom just like machine gun shitting out of my ass. Just it's over. I'm yelling at him. I'm like, it was so cool dating you. Like, good luck. You're gonna meet the greatest girl. She's out there for you. Where should I come? What do you think?
Thanks for clapping at my whoredom. I'm not. I make it sound like I'm such a slut. I'm not at all. I've only been with 4 people. That was a weird night. But no, usually I feel pretty good about myself. Like, I know what I look like. Like, you'd bang me, but you wouldn't blog about it. I get it. I'm fine with it. You won't be twittering like, you won't believe who I'm inside, but it's fine.
But you know, you wake up, you're having a good puss day. And then maybe you know you're gonna have a visitor, so in the shower you get very real in there, you know? You pull things back, you don't usually. Get in, it's like Stranger Things. You just kind of get in. Gotta find Barb, guys. She's in there.
And so I had just written her off. I was like, okay, she's not that funny to me, but whatever, big deal. Who gives a fuck? One female comedian not causing me to erupt in laughter did not cause me to hate all female comedians. But I will say that there is an irritation that forms when you're watching a bunch of people laugh at someone you don't think is funny. I imagine it's similar to when people who hate laugh tracks watch like The Big Bang Theory or any Dan Schneider sitcom. So I get why people are annoyed by her comedy in that sense. My impression of her, while already sullied before, had now completely soured. Before I was reluctant to watch her stand up, but now I was more reluctant to jump on the Amy Schumer hate train. I was willing to run alongside it at least, or walk, because as a wise woman once said,
I don't run.
because there was something about her that always irked me a little, and I couldn't place a finger on why. Was it internalized misogyny? Was my perception of her so poisoned by other people's hatred that I couldn't see her any other way? And then a couple of years ago, as I was preparing for my white women thinking they're fat video, I decided I was going to give Amy Schumer a fair shake. Because it felt like most of the people who hated her because of out of context clips from YouTube with titles like Amy Schumer trying to be funny but failing miserably, and men typically watching Amy Schumer's comedy until they laughed. Spoiler, they don't. The most common criticism was about the fact that she was always joking about sex and her weight, but mostly sex. I admit that her sex jokes don't always land for me, and they do sometimes feel random, like sometimes she'll notice she might be losing the crowd a little, and then she'll just drop a random vag joke. But it still felt a little sexist and overblown that so many people hated her simply because they didn't appeal to her humor. So I watched a few of her stand-up specials, I watched Trainwreck and I Feel Pretty, I watched her docuseries on HBO, and I even read her damn book. I believe that if you're going to give a critical analysis of someone, you should actually take the time to engage with their content and approach it in good faith. And that's what I was trying to do. When I initially began watching Inside Amy Schumer, I was not completely pulled in, and I didn't really like the first season. And then seasons 2 and 3 happened, and I was like, okay, Amy, I see you. There were many sketches that I felt had pretty well-written satire about everyday sexism. One of my favorite sketches was Football Town Nights, a Friday Night Light satire about grape culture. In fact, oftentimes when the show tackled SA, it did it pretty well, like this one sketch about a very realistic military game.
No. You were just assaulted by a fellow soldier. Do you wish to report?
Yes, I wish to report it.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Did you know he has a family?
No.
Does that change your mind about reporting?
No.
Another one of my favorites was one about the Madonna horror complex, and I think it holds up pretty well.
How are you so good at this?
Awkward. I'm sorry. I don't understand what you want. Do you want the Madonna or the whore?
Yeah,
Which one?
both. Look, it's not hard to understand. I need you to be like a sexual Goodwill Hunting. Like you have no formal education, but then you see my dick and you just get it.
When I scoured Reddit posts and X posts trying to get a sense of what people say about Amy Schumer and Lena Dunham, I found a comment or two referencing her show and how the only reason the show was mildly funny was because it had other writers. Basically, it wasn't funny because of Schumer, but I kind of disagree. It's true that the show had various other writers, and so Amy shouldn't get all of the credit when it comes to the show's strong suits. But I did read her book, and it's not like hilarious, but she is a pretty good writer. She has a chapter about her dad dealing with some health issues that caused him to become incontinent, aka not being able to control your bowel movements. She describes her father as someone she always saw as this confident, prideful, and invincible man, and how he still maintained that prideful attitude while shitting himself in public. Twice. I wasn't completely bored by this book. There were chapters that really took a hold of my ADHD brain, and I didn't want to put it down. To my surprise, the second chapter, An Open Letter to My Vagina, may seem corny or hacky, but I actually found it to be #relatable.
What is it about me that made you think I want to be relatable?
First of all, I'm sorry. Second of all, you're welcome. I know I've put you through a lot. I've had hot wax poured on you and the hair ripped from you by strangers. Some of the strangers have burned you, even though I told them you have very sensitive skin. But it's on me for going to a shady looking place in Astoria, Queens that you thought may have been a drug front. I've been responsible for getting you yeast infections and UTIs and have worn stockings and Spanx for too long, knowing it would cause you problems. And I want to apologize for Lance on the lacrosse team who treated you like you owed him money with his finger. That sucked. And I'm totally with you in being pissed. But you've also had a lot of nice visitors, right? Huh? You have to admit we've had a lot of fun together. I even fought to be able to call you pussy, which I know you prefer on television. There were also chapters that were, a little rambly, a little boring, a little eye-rolly, especially the one where she talks about being new money. But overall, it wasn't that bad. So maybe she should stick to writing? I don't know. Regardless of who made this sketch comedy show watchable and more than mildly interesting, at least for seasons 2 and 3, I liked it. And I'm willing to defend at least a handful of the sketches. But none from season 5 because that season was messy, boring, repetitive, and a complete waste of time. I also rewatched the Leather special and the Comedy Central roast of Roseanne, and wow, not as good as I remembered it. That roast was so boring. Poor Carrie Fisher got up there and Whose decision was that?
I am mentally ill. But thank you. Thank you. Makes this a lot easier, believe me.
Her docuseries, Expecting Amy, which documented Amy's grueling pregnancy with her first child, was actually quite gripping. As I was watching it, I started to see why her fans found her appealing. She has like this lazy, drunken voice, and she just comes off as like some woman at a bar who's a little tipsy and is telling you about her sex life.
Craziest place you've had sex? My butt. What do you think your dog thinks of you?
I think she thinks that I should shower more.
What would your signature fragrance be called?
I should shower more.
What I appreciated most about the documentary was Amy shining a light on how ugly, painful, and physically draining pregnancy can be. And after absorbing so much Schumer content over the past few years, I do feel that while I don't know her and I'll never know what is truly in her heart, I did feel more compassion for her. And I was finally able to place a finger on why she irritated me so much. After all of that, I feel I now have a better understanding of her, or at least what she represents. But I also formed a better understanding of her haters. If you don't think we can win the culture war, look at Amy Schumer. No, not literally. Ugh. Look at how Hollywood tried ironically to shove her down our collective throats like one of her second breakfast muffins. We just didn't. Now she's gone. We have the power. She's fat and ugly and turns these things into very poor quality humor. She just isn't funny at all. She also copies others for their jokes, and her delivery of said jokes is incredibly bad. I put in, show an image of Amy Schumer on a plane. Amy Schumer, is this you? Amy Schumer, comedy for the humorless. Is Amy Schumer even a comedian? Amy Schumer, obnoxious maybe, but not funny.
Agreed.
Amy Schumer, tries too hard, plus she looks like a pig, so you guys. She revealed her pregnancy and all I see are tweets about her weight or I feel bad for the kid. What is this? Just say congratulations and move on. I thought she was fat. Gross. Who would admit to be the father? Someone married her? Who would fuck that bitch? I feel bad for the kid already. Why is she allowed to breed? Jesus Christ. I didn't know Amy Schumer was in the UK. Amy Schumer saves film by refusing role. She already has enough roles. She's got plenty of roles already, especially above her jeans. She obviously isn't refusing roles that often. Extra dessert isn't feminist either, Amy. She was offered the role of body positivity Barbie. Was there a role for a pig or something? When she was growing up, everybody laughed when Amy Schumer said she wanted to be a comedian. Nobody is laughing now. This post alone is funnier than any joke that ever passed this woman's lips. Reminder that they almost chose Amy Schumer to be Barbie. Why did we need that reminder? If you ever want to quit drinking, start playing the drinking game. Take a shot if you laugh about a joke from Amy Schumer. Two cannibals were eating Amy Schumer. One said, "Does this taste funny to you?" The other said, "No." She gives off high, I need attention to feel good about myself energy. She is an inspiration that someone with no skills, no wit, no brains can become a successful comedian. If she can do it, so can you. She's a black hole of comedy. Comedy is flying her way, and as soon as it gets close enough, it gets sucked in and dies forever until the end of the universe. Right now, I am on painkillers, and I still feel physical pain from all this cringe. The best joke she ever made was her career. She's like the Brie Larson of comedy. I feel like the majority of the views came from people who just clicked to read the comments. Look at you being all perceptive. Came here for the comments, didn't disappoint.
The test came back positive. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you've been overexposed.
Overexposed?
Yes, you're everywhere. Magazines, this Instagram photo of you on the subway wearing a poncho, Amy.
What's the cure?
Go away for a while. No late night TV show appearances, no podcasts.
Thank God.
And do not go back to your basic cable TV show.
No can do, Doc. Gotta follow my heart. Keep exposing myself.
2018 was a very big year for women. After a record-breaking amount of women were elected into the Senate, 2018 was dubbed the Year of the Woman. The label that was once associated famously with the leaps made for women in the Senate in 1992 made a comeback. As author Li Zhao speaks to in her article about the Year of the Woman, she notes the striking similarities of the political climate in which these labels were placed. In 1992, much like 2018, the country was grappling with a series of high-profile sexual misconduct cases. Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the Supreme Court even after Anita Hill levied sexual harassment allegations against him. Bill Clinton had won the White House while being dogged by allegations of infidelity, and women broadly were furious. So in 2018, 2 years after the election of Donald Trump and a year after the mainstream explosion of Me Too, 2018 felt like a promising year not just for women and feminism, but also marginalized people as a whole. 2018 saw Beyonce, the first Black woman to ever headline Coachella, and like with most things Beyonce does, became a huge historical and memorable event. Oprah Winfrey was the first Black woman to win the Cecil B. DeMille Award and gave a viral speech at the Golden Globes that was so inspiring that people began urging her to run for president. Kendrick Lamar won a Pulitzer Prize for his album Damn. Childish Gambino released his famous Black Lives Matter anthem This Is America. Crazy Rich Asians, which was the first big mainstream film to feature a mostly Asian cast, was one of the biggest rom-coms to be released that year. Speaking of cinema, this year also brought us films like The Hate U Give, The Tale, Love, Simon, Sorry to Bother You, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and Green Book.
Remember that?
2018 also gave us the beloved podcast You're Wrong About, which in its early years spent many episodes discussing what they referred to as unfairly maligned women of the 80s and 90s. From Anita Hill to Monica Lewinsky to Tanya Harding to Amy Fisher to Jessica Hahn to Marie Antoinette, all these women who had been dragged through the mud by the media and who previously were only met with apathy were now having their stories told from a more empathetic perspective. Journalists like the amazing Sarah Marshall and Michael Hobbs in their incredible podcast helped promulgate a trend that was meant to rectify the mistakes of the past. This trend arguably had its true origins in 2017 with the release of I, Tonya, an indie biopic directed by Craig Gillespie, who centered around the life and times of Tanya Price, formerly Tanya Harding, who before this film was a disgraced former figure skater infamous for allegedly being involved in an attack against her former opponent, Nancy Kerrigan. Due to being poor, a tomboy with a dysfunctional family, and an abusive husband, Tanya's athletic abilities on the ice took a back seat. It didn't matter that she was the first U.S. woman and the second woman in the world to complete a triple axel in 1991. What mattered was that she didn't have the look that the Figure Skating Association wanted. As Sarah often talked about during this time on the podcast, she was considered white trash, and this consideration was used to justify the horrid treatment she faced from the media and reporters, and the narrative that was built around her. Despite the restraining order and 911 calls she placed, and despite her claims that she feared for her life, Marshall wrote, few phrases were quite so gleefully suggestive as white trash lifestyle as live-in ex-husband. We can debate the extent of the foreknowledge she had, but I think really we were punishing her for the crime of being trashy. This trend culminated in many a biopic and miniseries, from Pam and Tommy to Blonde to Priscilla to Spencer to American Crime Story Impeachment. All of these TV shows and movies helped rehabilitate the images of these women who had been victims of a misogynistic culture that enjoys tearing women down for no good reason. While misogyny, classism, and racism are often the reasons, they are not good ones. Was it really necessary to slut-shame Pamela Anderson while simultaneously praising her husband Tommy for a sex tape that was literally stolen from them? Did it make sense to spend so much time making jokes about Monica giving Bill Clinton a BJ as if that was worse than a whole-ass, old-ass, crusty-ass president getting involved with a 20-year-old woman inside the White House? Was that worse than Bill having a history of sexually harassing women and being an alleged rapist and a serial cheater? Obviously not, and the past few years, at least up until now, have tried to right the wrongs of journalism's past. The past 6 years have felt like a tide shift in the way we talk about famous women and women who are public figures. In 2022, a writer and author by the name of Rain Fisher Kwan coined the term getting womaned on Twitter. Getting womaned refers to when a woman who was once beloved by everyone suddenly and all at once becomes one of the most hated women in the world. Exhibit A, Anne Hathaway, who became a household name in 2001 after starring in the millennial Gen Z classic The Princess Diaries. After winning an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her role in Les Miserables, the public decided that she was just too much of an annoying theater kid and that we adored her just a little too much. And she didn't make matters better when she hosted the Oscars alongside James Franco's high ass.
You know,
all right.
It used to be, you get naked, you get nominated. Not anymore. Not anymore.
This caused a sudden turn on Anne during the mid to late 2010s and became so ubiquitous that it has been dubbed half a hate. This hate didn't just exist in a vacuum though. It actually had a negative impact on Anne's career, and she has recently spoken about how she struggled to get roles due to this widespread disdain for her. Exhibit B, Britney Spears, who is probably one of the most classic examples of being womaned. She rose to fame during the late 1990s with hits like Hit Me Baby One More Time and Oops, I Did It Again. But after her public breakup with Justin Timberlake resulted in him writing a song about her breaking his heart, the public felt that Britney was a slut and a bitch who was no longer deserving of our love, adoration, and sympathy. She wasn't the good girl we thought she was. She wasn't the positive role models for girls that we expected her to be. And this hatred led to intense scrutiny and surveillance from the media, who relished in documenting her public downfall while participating in it. Exhibit C, Rachel Zegler. After news broke that she was going to be playing Snow White in an upcoming Disney reboot, and she made some less than flattering comments about a 1930s Disney movie that no one gave a shit about until this reboot was announced, she has now become the internet's favorite punching bag. Exhibit D, Millie Bobby Brown. Exhibit E, Brie Larson. Exhibit F, Jennifer Lawrence. There were other factors in the public turning on Lawrence, of course. Some of it was just the classic backlash cycle. She was overexposed, she made a few bad movies in a row, people got tired of her shtick because she was fucking everywhere, relentlessly for several years. But I don't think people turned on her for the same reason they did Anne Hathaway, who was always read by the public as a cringy, sincere tryhard. A theater kid who made it but never shook her theater kidness. If anything, Lawrence scanned the opposite of a tryhard. She was the party babe who stumbled into a Hollywood career almost by accident. Interviews and profiles of that era downplayed Lawrence's ambition and often painted her as an overnight success, despite the fact that she was a working kid actor on a sitcom in the 2000s. But it wasn't cool to try. So there was little mention, if any, of how hard Lawrence worked to be an overnight sensation. Getting woman doesn't necessarily refer to any famous woman who is widely hated or someone who has been canceled. It's not like people are watching with bated breath for these people to slip up or even calling them out on actual bad behavior. Instead, they're inventing reasons to no longer like them. It might be that your fave female celebrity has a particularly annoying walk, or starts being criticized for the way they dress, or their activism has gone from feeling empowering to performative. En masse, people may start taking issue with the way said celebrity holds themselves in interviews or the shade of lipstick she wears. Just like the it can ruin a relationship, being woman usually stems from a small inconsequential action that becomes increasingly unbearable to the public. Brie Larson, I feel, is an interesting case of being womaned. She gave a speech back in February of 2019 at the Crystal and Lucy Awards where she cited a study from 2018 that found that most film critics reviewing movies from that year, specifically those with non-white casts, were mostly white men. Brie Larson, rightfully, felt like that was bullshit and said, "I don't want to hear what a white man has to say about A Wrinkle in Time. I want to hear what a woman of color, a biracial woman, has to say about the film. I want to hear what teenagers think about the film. If you make a movie that is a love letter to women of color, there is a chance that a woman of color does not have access to a review and critique your film. Do not say the talent is not there, because it is." Now, in the comment section of this Variety article that you should absolutely not seek out, I am not kidding, don't do it. Also, I already did it for you, because
I am mentally ill.
Many of the comments came from, I would assume, white men who felt she was being racist towards white men by implying that white men should not critique films with casts that feature mostly people of color, which is not what she said. If I roll my eyes any harder, I risk ocular trauma. Thank you for reminding us that feminism is cancer, and intersectional feminism is stage 4 rectal cancer. Let me paraphrase this double-speak leftist propaganda. It doesn't matter if movies are good, so long as they toe the globalist, anti-white, anti-male, anti-West agenda. Hashtag kill all men. Hashtag abolish whiteness. That pretty much sums up everything she was saying, as well as everything she was trying really hard not to openly admit. Now, Brie saying that she doesn't want to hear what a 40-year-old white man has to say about A Wrinkle in Time is definitely bold, and honestly I kind of respect her for it. She was not saying white men shouldn't ever critique films that feature mostly people of color. She wasn't saying that it doesn't matter whether films are good or bad. She was making a very apt point about how women of color were noticeably absent from this space and how it would be nice if there were people of color, or more people of color, reviewing these films as well. This is not really a wild statement to make, although it came off that way due to how she delivered this speech. Sometimes you just have to use bold word choices so your point can be heard, and I think that's what she was trying to do. And well, despite the fact that people who are sexist or racist or both love to accuse people of color or women or LGBTQ people of being sensitive snowflakes, they always seem to have very sensitive and overblown reactions to someone saying they don't personally want to hear a white man's opinion of A Wrinkle in Time. As if her saying this is immediately somehow going to put a bunch of white male critics out of their jobs, or that whiteness will be annihilated if more women of color are reviewing these movies. Like, maybe stop being so sensitive and actually unpack what she was saying instead of getting so caught up with the 40-year-old white man part of the speech.
Only 2.5% of those top critics were women of color. So you're probably thinking right now, like, wow, that super doesn't represent the country that I live in. Am I saying that I hate white dudes? No, I'm not. And I'm also saying I don't hate white dudes. And for the third time, I don't hate white dudes. These are just facts. These are not my feelings. Because I know that this means that my work will be shown, digested, discussed by a variety of people, not just a singular perspective. I want to know what my work means to the world, not a narrow view.
Following this was a wave of misogynistic backlash and videos made by white male Marvel fans, nitpicking Brie's attitude, behavior, and body language with titles implying that her Marvel cast members didn't really like her. Videos with titles like Brie Larson Cringe Compilation or Brie Larson annoying Chris Hemsworth for 13 minutes straight. There was even a video I found called Elizabeth Olsen versus Brie Larson, comparing the two women with the implication that Elizabeth is more likable than Brie. In fact, one commenter wrote, "Elizabeth Olsen has the rare talent of having both movie star beauty and a likable personality in Hollywood." This comment got 14,000 likes. How lovely. See, when people see women like Amy Adams or Elizabeth Olsen, who are very talented, conventionally attractive, and don't talk about politics and don't speak about things that may be considered hashtag controversial or hashtag anti-men, they are seen as the ideal woman. They're likable because they know how to look pretty and say as little as possible, or say as little about politics as possible. My point in all of this is to highlight the ways women in the public eye, whether they are a child or a sincere tryhard or a poor figure skater from Portland, Oregon, or gave a harmless speech about movie critics, have a very high bar to cross when it comes to how they act in the public eye. I want to highlight the odd and cruel behavior people feel comfortable displaying when it comes to a famous woman that irks them. Amy Schumer has always kind of irked me, but I never felt the urge to get on the internet and constantly compare her to Miss Piggy or get into every comment section of every video she is featured in just so I can leave a nasty comment or a snarky joke about how unfunny she is. This type of behavior is not exactly surprising though. When someone you find to be annoying, untalented, unfunny, and overexposed also happens to be ugly, those who would consider themselves nice people suddenly feel slightly more empowered to dunk on their appearance. I think we've all been guilty of this. I talked about this in my Super Size Me video about leftists being fatphobic towards Trump. This man is an out and proud bigot and an alleged rapist who admittedly looks like a Simpsons character, but what is one of the main things people make fun of him for besides being dumb? Being fat. I mean, if we're to circle back to Tanya Harding for a second, Sean Eichhardt, who was Jeff Gooley's best friend and one of the spearheads of the attack on Nancy Kerrigan, was often mocked and ridiculed in the media for being a pathological liar as well as being dumb and fat. It's like people can't possibly criticize an actual shitty person without also making it clear that them being fat or ugly is just as important as them being shitty to servers, like with James Corden, or stealing jokes like with Amy Schumer. And it's like people don't think about how this would be seen by the fat people in their own lives. But to bring this back to Amy Schumer, unfairly maligned women, and the concept of being womaned, I think Amy is an interesting case of being both womaned and fairly maligned to some degree. She, like the others, was labeled overexposed, which for female celebrities in particular, as we have seen, is a sure way to get people to hate you. Could it be that people just can't stand watching a woman get too successful, or misogyny, or our penchant for attacking women online like sport, or all of the above? Who can say? I mean, I think it's fascinating with someone like Millie Bobby Brown, who is a literal child at the height of her online vitriol. Like, Millie Bobby Brown is only 20 years old, and she's already been run over by the sexist misinformation hate train, has been labeled rude and stuck up, has had her behavior in interviews nitpicked by adults, has already quit Twitter and IG due to people harassing her for being homophobic, which was a straight up rumor, and already has articles that focus on her reflecting on all the internet hate she has received. She is 20 fucking years old. Talk about inventing reasons to hate someone. They literally invented her homophobia so people could hate her for that. That is wild. Like, why is a woman being too famous cause for this? Why does it cause you to make this young woman who is, as Demi Lovato once saying, too young to drink wine, the target of your ire? Being overexposed seems to be as detrimental to a famous woman as being labeled difficult. Whether it's true or not, once that label is placed on you, it's basically like wearing a scarlet A at this point. I have no doubt that this will probably happen to Sydney Sweeney. Count your days, Sydney. They're going to be coming for you in about 2 years. Probably less. So let's bring this back to Amy Schumer and this alleged fatness. Alright. I'm about to say something very controversial. I don't think Amy Schumer is ugly. I actually think she has a cute smile, she has high cheekbones, and even though she irritates me, I think she's cute. There, I said it. The reason people find her to be so unattractive is because she has a round, chubby face and a double chin. That's literally the only reason. If her jawline was just slightly altered and her double chin was gone, she would be considered one of the hottest women in Hollywood because y'all love a hot white blonde lady. And Amy was never a fat person. You can argue me up and down about it, but during the 2010s, she is visibly thin in a lot of these stand-ups, and she said herself that she ranged between a size 6 and a 10. Famously, not plus size. She has a chubby face, and because we, as Aubrey Gordon has said, reject fatness at every turn, Amy's haters treated her as if she was the fattest person in the entire world when she's clearly straight-sized. Fat shaming is a tactic people use to take a successful woman, regardless of size, down a peg, like with Elizabeth Taylor, Kate Winslet, Britney Spears, and Jessica Simpson. After watching I Feel Pretty and reading her book, it has become clear to me that Amy probably has, and I know I shouldn't be diagnosing someone who I don't know, especially when I'm not a mental health professional, so take this with a grain of salt. The way she talks about her body is giving body dysmorphia. She's always, even when she is visibly very small, constantly referring to her body as if she weighs like 250 pounds when she's not even 200 pounds.
I'm probably like 160 pounds right now, and I can catch a dick whenever I want. Like, that's the truth.
I explain where this may have stemmed from in my white women thinking they're fat video, but considering the beauty standards of the time she grew up in, it makes sense. But it doesn't make it less annoying. Not because she has insecurities, but because she is being given an identity that doesn't truly belong to her. Aubrey Gordon talked about this in an episode of Maintenance Phase about Elizabeth Taylor, who was also considered super fat as well as extremely beautiful when she clearly was never super fat. And something she says is that there are people in Hollywood who by regular human body standards is clearly not a fat person, but they are being treated as a fat person in the industry that they work in. This is obviously what Amy Schumer has experienced. It doesn't help that her internet trolls are probably just increasing her body dysmorphia, or what I strongly suspect is body dysmorphia. These types of comments also only help to increase Amy's sense of persecution, where she is unable to separate the valid criticism from the invalid criticism, and therefore will reduce any criticism she receives as just misogynistic and fatphobic attacks.
I think one of the hallmarks of Amy Schumer's relationship to the public, in a way that we're going to get to later in this episode, is this like, what is valid criticism? What is misogyny and fat phobia? And also, where does she blur the lines between those two in a way that's convenient for her to like dodge actual criticism?
I think that's exactly what's going on. I think she, which we'll talk about, but I think that she definitely weaponizes that. Or I don't even know if it's an intentional weaponization, but it's like a knee-jerk inclination and a knee-jerk defensive response, regardless of what the criticism coming her way is.
And she wouldn't be totally wrong. She does receive those attacks, and I do feel some of them are unwarranted. This commenter saying that she has no skills or wit or talent is a little unfair. I don't even think she's that funny, and I actually can understand why people find her appealing. As I said earlier, she has that drunk aunt vibe going for her, and her comedy often centers around women's issues, body image, and diet culture. And as some Reddit commenters pointed out themselves, some of the men who dislike her because they can't appeal or relate to her humor. And because they can't, she must be talentless and unfunny. She must be talking about her pussy too much. Instead of maybe trying to understand the humor, instead of trying to connect with it, or just simply saying, this isn't for me. They have to fixate on it and treat this one person whose comedy doesn't appeal to them as if they are like the devil incarnate. And they will be single-handedly responsible for the downfall of comedy as we know it. These women end up developing what is called an anti-fandom, where people just enjoy bonding over hating this person as if it is a full-time job. It's important not to confuse an anti-fan with a critic. Criticism is usually a fair and often essential segment of fandom. Fans of Taylor Swift, Swifties, are not anti-fans for questioning the carbon emissions generated by her private jet. They are warranted in their criticism of a celebrity they like. a person they admire but simultaneously want to see better behavior from. Critical fans only become anti-fans when their enthusiasm evaporates and is replaced almost entirely with hate. And to be clear, this is not to say that male celebrities don't deal with intense scrutiny about their bodies. Regardless of how we feel about them, Jonah Hill and James Corden have been fat shamed by media publications and people on the internet. Body shaming is not unique to cis women, obviously. But let's be real, there are lots of men in Hollywood, lots of male comedians in Hollywood who are not hot. Like, I'm sorry, but who is getting wet for Bill Burr? Who? Male comedians, famously, not super conventionally attractive, and that's usually why they're comedians, sorry. They tried to convince us that Michael Douglas was so fuckable in the 1980s, and he is the most basic looking white man there is. Now, this doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with looking basic. Like, seriously, there isn't. Most of us are average. But it also shouldn't matter when it comes to Amy Schumer, and yet here we are. Also, I know Amy is a comedian. This is her literal job, but the people who dunk on Amy's appearance aren't exactly making creative jokes themselves. Calling someone who looks fat Miss Piggy is the oldest fat joke in the world, next to Fatty and Fatso. Also, Miss Piggy is a fat icon, like, leave her out of it, please. And the amount of times I saw that 2 cannibals were eating Amy Schumer joke, like, it wasn't that funny to be repeated that many times in multiple different comment sections. Like, y'all were way too proud of that one. Amy Schumer is about as famous for her internet trolls as she is for her relentless sex jokes. All one needs to do is search Amy Schumer, internet trolls, to find multiple interviews and videos of her discussing the people online who absolutely hate her guts. Whenever Amy talks about this, though, she says that these comments don't faze her and that she actually pities the fools who spend their time on the internet trolling women about their looks and for daring to open their mouths.
Afraid of insults. So many women don't speak up if somebody wrongs them just for fear of somebody saying something mean about you.
Absolutely, but you're different.
I am different.
You're different.
I look at that as an opportunity.
You look at the trolls as a way to inspire you, right?
Yeah. I couldn't feel a mean internet comment now if I wanted to. I think I've gotten so desensitized to it over the years. And then it just, I feel such sympathy.
For a while, this was what kept me from jumping on that hate train. For a while, I felt for Amy because of this in the same way I felt for Lena. But as I was doing research on the many Schumer controversies, my empathy began to wane. For a minute, I believed Amy when she said that being a voice for women was very important to her. I believed her when she said that internet trolls were sad and pathetic, because they are, and I understand on some level why she feels persecuted. ContraPoints has a great video about J.K. Rowling and her canceling, and how being the target of incessant misogynistic attacks from people online can make that person feel as though they are being oppressed, even if that person has actually done harm and is deserving of criticism.
Misogyny is the most universal prejudice, and trans people are not immune. Angry Twitter mobs are generally more vicious to women, regardless of whether their anger is justified. There is a witch hunt impulse that's still alive in our culture. To be a famous woman is to constantly have every part of your body and soul subject to endless critique. You know, if you're 1 pound overweight, they call you a fatty. If you're 1 pound underweight, they say you have an eating disorder. And if you're exactly the right weight, they call you a fatty with an eating disorder. You know, it's a kind of crowdsourced abuse. There's a reason Taylor Swift is obsessed with her haters. When you're a famous woman, it's hard not to be obsessed with your haters, because the haters bring the obsession to you.
That's not to say that everyone who rightfully criticizes JKR is misogynistic, to be clear. And ContraPoints also discusses this in another video about how criticism against women, regardless of what they have done, seems to always take on what she calls a misogynistic tone. Because while we have re-examined the unfairly maligned women of the past and have redeemed them, we still haven't really reckoned with our woman-hating culture. Nor have we stopped maligning women for unfair reasons. All of that is unequivocally true, but as I have been alluding to, this trolling does not absolve Amy of her actions. So when she said,
for the people who feel motivated to go, I mean, I don't even know anyone that would write a mean comment on a stranger's Instagram or whatever.
Right.
If I found out one of my friends wrote something mean on a Kardashian's social media, I'd be like, you're out of my phone. That's crazy.
I bristled, because while I feel for Amy, she's kind of full of shit.
The same thing, you're, oh, don't
please, she's different now.
Yeah.
All of them want to be treated like the same.
Yeah.
It's always some fucking dippy slice that writes a blog, okay, who nothing bad has ever happened to.
Yeah.
And they had a woman's studies, and they're, but they're not. They're clever. Don't lump in a well-written or thought-out joke with, I wish was legal.
A wise woman once said, I go in and out of playing an irreverent idiot. That includes making dumb jokes involving race. I enjoy playing the girl who time to time says the dumbest thing possible. And playing with race is a thing we're not supposed to do, which is what makes it so fun for comics. You can call it a blind spot for racism or lazy, but you are wrong. It is a joke, and it is funny. I know that because people laugh at it. Between 2015 and 2016, Amy couldn't seem to keep herself out of the headlines. From accusations of racism to joke theft to being in a hit Judd Apatow comedy and instantly becoming one of the most well-known female comedians of our time. But it seems that at every turn, something was threatening to take Amy down. And one of them was her history with racist jokes.
I know you're thinking, like, Amy, do you have any flaws? Okay, yeah, I've got one. I'm racist. No, I'm not at all. She's really excited. It was important to her family that she date an Asian guy, so she finally just met one. But he looks just like her dad and her mom. It's really uncomfortable. Are the Asian people laughing? I can never tell. But racism is real. It's something we need to deal with, you know? I was talking about this the other day. I was hanging out with all my black friends, and I'm like, let's talk about this, you know? And what was she saying? She was like, girl, you know, she was like I couldn't understand her, but she was pissed, you know? Like, even for me, as I get older, the sex I'm into changes. Like, I used to sleep with Hispanic guys, but now I just prefer consensual. I don't know. Pissed. She's like, I'm like, stop yelling, we're not at the movies. But, I love the brothers are going crazy on that one. Thank you. Thank you. I am so glad you guys laughed at that. That does not always work, I'll be honest with you. I mean, nothing works 100% of the time, right? Except Mexicans. I've noticed.
Now, she defends this by saying that she was just playing a dumb white girl and that the intention was to make fun of people who are like this. I half believe her. Maybe less than half. The jokes themselves are really not that funny to me. Like, I don't know. I don't think being blatantly offensive means that it's instantly funny. Sometimes jokes are so basic in their racism that the joke isn't even clever or interesting. Like, take the Latina joke she made at the MTV Movie Awards in 2015.
But Amy might have gone too far with one joke. Check out the look on Jennifer Lopez's face when Amy made a joke about the movie Gone Girl.
It's the story of what one crazed white woman or all Latinas do if you cheat on them. That's a fact. The cast of Fault in Our Stars are here.
You can call it a blind spot for racism. You can call it lazy. Yes, I will call it lazy. That's what it was. Thank you for giving me permission. Like, I would have made the same face as J-Lo. That joke wasn't even good. You just wanted to say something so out there, and you were hoping that it would land, but it didn't. These jokes are meant to be shock humor with some edgy racism mixed in. But Amy couldn't just own up to that. Amy's response doesn't surprise me though. In fact, in retrospect, it kind of provides a blueprint for how Amy decides to handle accountability, and that would become even more apparent in 2016. After the release of her memoir, The Girl with the Lower Back Tattoo, something else, or rather, someone else, managed to steal the book's thunder. And much like in Lena's case, this person would be a writer from her own show. In the middle of August, Amy's friend and colleague Kurt Metzger, who worked as a writer on Inside Amy Schumer all the way through to the 4th season, made headlines when he decided to go on a blatantly sexist and disgusting rant after a comedian by the name of Aaron Glazer had been accused of essay by multiple female comedians, which caused this comedian to be banned from the Upright Citizens Brigade Center. I'm not going to read the post, but let's just say they were pretty abysmal. But for many who knew of him, this wasn't surprising. This was not the first time Kurt had done this. In fact, he was known for being a sexist internet troll. Writers Lindy West and Sadie Doyle got the Kurt treatment back in 2013 when they both openly criticized SA jokes and comedy. So Kurt decided to harass them online, and according to them, even created sock puppet accounts to further the harassment, which he was also want to do apparently. In an interview with Official Comedy Stand-Up, he goes on about how he's dated a lot of girls who fucked up shit has happened to, and they never blamed comedy for their trauma. Therefore, it is just absolutely ridiculous to ever complain about an SA joke, ever. And listen, Kurt, he knows a lot about SA, you guys.
You have to fight a feminist with that shit.
Yeah.
Which is insane because everybody gets raped. I mean, I know men do the rape mostly, but everyone gets raped. And men literally can't talk about them. If you get raped as a man, not only is it hilarious, right?
Well, it's pretty.
Yeah, like that's not all the jokes, but you know in the Congo, which like you know when they say rape culture, because that's like a thing you hear.
Yeah.
We don't have that here. That's such. I mean, just if you think that you're such a fucking privileged asshole to think you live in America and there's a rape culture and a piece of shit, you'll probably never be here, you animal. You'll probably never be raped here, you animal.
Yes, that is true, Kurt. Everyone, regardless of gender, race, class, body size, etc., can experience SA, but I don't think feminists complaining about SA jokes means that they think only women get SA'd. This was something that came up during the Me Too movement. There was like this him too thing that trended at one point because even though it says Me Too, some men still felt that the movement excluded men from the conversation. Arguably, the Me Too movement excluded a lot of people and mainly focused on famous white women, but I'm sure these men don't care about that. Yes, it is largely women who have led these conversations about SA, but I'm so tired of people treating that as some kind of detriment to men's SA experiences. Feminists have done so much to push the conversation around SA culture, including black women like Tarana Burke, who started Me Too in 2006. Some of y'all don't even know that. And because of this, people feel like it's a women's issue, and men themselves even end up ignoring men's SA experiences, like Kurt does in this interview. He literally says men getting SA'd is hilarious because being SA'd is something that we have classified as something only women can be the victims of. There's a whole discussion to be had about SA jokes. I love dark humor, and I personally think you can joke about anything. But just because you can joke about anything doesn't mean it's always going to be funny to everyone. There is a way to make an SA joke that is actually clever and doesn't just punch down on SA victims all the time. It's like Family Guy. A couple is one thing, but if every SA joke is just punchline, haha, this woman is about to get SA'd, then yeah, it kind of feels like you just think SA and getting roofied is inherently funny. Often these are the punchlines men like Kurt always defend. I can understand laughing at the absurdity or the crassness, but I can also understand why this joke would make people uncomfortable. I think if you want to make sexist SA jokes, you can do that, but you don't get to tell people that your jokes aren't offensive, especially when you're not a victim of SA yourself. What's so annoying about some comedians is that they will go out of their way to make blatantly offensive jokes, especially against women, which they are in their rights to do, but then get mad when people get offended. Like, is that not what you wanted? Why are you so sensitive to criticism while targeting two women who weren't even talking to you? Like, they were just expressing their frustration with certain types of SA jokes. Also, I'm pretty sure Kurt tells those jokes because he knows it will make people mad. He's a troll, like, just own it. Also in 2013, just to throw this in there, Sadie Doyle screenshotted a post of him admitting to physically assaulting his ex-girlfriend. But sure, he's definitely the voice for all SA victims. What people like Metzger don't understand is that their opinions aren't revolutionary, bold, or underrepresented. Men have been calling sexual assault survivors whiny liars long before Twitter let us mute them. But most of these men aren't on Amy Schumer's payroll. Speaking of Amy Schumer, Given that we just talked about Amy and her haters and how sexist they are, you would think that Amy would have come out with full force against everything Kurt has been saying. You would think because Lindy West, an actual fat woman, was fat shamed by Kurt and Amy has experienced fat shaming, that she as a self-proclaimed feminist would be appalled by his comments and him going after women and feminists especially. After all, she did say in 2018 that she doesn't even know anybody who was an internet troll, and if she did, they'd be out of her phone in a second. So how, pray tell, did Amy respond? What he was saying was horrific, and he was being a troll. He can be an internet troll, Schumer told Lena Dunham in a Q&A in Friday's edition of Dunham's e-newsletter Lenny. The fact that I had to answer for it, I was like, ugh, why this week? I was like, if there's scandals, can't they be about me? Okay, interesting. In 2016, when he went on his essay apologist rant, fans of Amy Schumer, not haters, but fans, urged Amy to do something about Kurt, like, fire him since she is the executive producer of Inside Amy Schumer. But Amy, I guess, was just annoyed that people had the nerve to ask her to do this. So instead, Amy just responded by blocking them. Many of whom looked up to her and then told people to stop asking her about it and that she can't fire Kurt because there are no writers. So who are we gonna fire? The heir?
I'm not on Facebook, so I don't read his crazy rants. Like he gets something from going after people, making them mad, that is not representative of me at all. I've asked him, can you just stop? Because it comes back to me. Because he writes for the show, it's a bigger story because of our connection. And so whatever tangent he's gone off on, I have not agreed with, and it's been really upsetting to me seeing someone that I care about hurt themselves like this. And so, right now there's no plans for the TV show to come back in any time in the near future. So nobody's on my staff. There are no writers.
Something Amy Schumer does in this interview, I just find to be so For one, Amy is not even interested in acting like she cares about what he's actually done. Throughout this entire scandal, she just acts like she is so offended that people would attach her to him when she says in this interview that Kurt is her friend and that she loves him. Because she really doesn't want people getting mad at her for this, she decided to deflect from what Kurt has done by insisting that we not focus on internet trolling because I have been essayed and we should focus on essay instead.
And I would love to refocus the energy and the attention on the real problem, which is, I feel, people understanding is about rape.
Yes.
And what's consensual and what's not. And because they really, the way that he's been gone after, because he baits people. He's the problem, no question. But the focus is on him rather than on what the real main problem is. We all need to be empowering each other. But to focus your energy on online trolling, if I did that, I wouldn't get anything done. Let's focus on actually getting the problem done. And I was sexually assaulted. I encourage women to come out, and I want men to hear what happened so that there's no confusion, because there are people have different understandings of what sexual assault is, what rape is. So let's all get on the same page so that it happens less.
What's interesting about this interview is that earlier that same year was when Amy was accused of stealing jokes by comedians Wendy Liebman, Kathleen Madigan, and Tammy Pascatelli, who later retracted their statements. But this seems to be the origin story of this joke thievery claim that has been stuck to Amy's legacy ever since. Amy decided to go on Jim Norton, her friend's podcast, to denounce these rumors. But during this podcast interview, Amy brings up a story about this 17-year-old white kid who took an innocent, friendly photo with her and then posted it to his social media with the caption, "Spent the night with Amy Schumer." Certainly not the first guy to write that, which was shady, I guess. But what's so perplexing to me is Amy even bringing this up in the first place, because she talks about how this hurt her feelings because she thought he was a fan, which, okay, I get that. But then right after this, she defends Kurt.
But anyway, so I'm like being rushed in, and this kid's like, "Can I have a picture?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I talked to him and his dad for a second, and he was sweet, and we had a nice little exchange, and I was like, "All right, bye." And then the next day, he posted this picture, and it said like
whatever he wrote, like a night with Amy Schumer, but a lot of guys have said that. And I was just kind of like, that's not cool, bro. And people don't understand. Like, if somebody's like, oh, I'm like the fat guy, if you're like Ralphie May and you make fat jokes, that's cool. But I don't think it's cool to like for somebody to go up to him like, hey, you fat fuck. It's like, no. And, I'm like, it's okay to make these jokes, but when someone, like, people don't know how to joke right, and also that I'd stopped with him, I'd taken time, and then I am.
Well, I've wondered why they said that, because things like, with Kurt, like, you stuck up for Kurt, and a lot of people were coming after him, and you stood by Metzger.
Fired. They were writing to me. They were in Comedy Central. They were like, fire this guy. They were sending me articles of why I should fire Kurt.
Y'all, I genuinely do not understand this. This entire thing, besides the controversy we will address later, is what made me feel really weird about Amy as a person. Because this is not me nitpicking this woman's body language or misconstruing her words. She is out here constantly positioning herself as the victim of internet trolls and fat shaming while defending an infamous internet troll who has been widely criticized by other women. She has also defended racist jokes she made at the expense of people of color, but is crying about a teenager making a slut-shaming joke about her on social media. It's not computing for me. If you're such a feminist who is so bothered by people being assholes online, then why didn't you at least care about what these women had to say about your shitty friend that you love so much? Amy admits that she knew that he was like this and has always been like this, but claims she doesn't go on his Facebook and so doesn't know what he said exactly, which I don't really believe her, sorry. But even if she genuinely didn't know, why wouldn't you go and look after people told you about it? You don't vet your writers? If internet trolling is something you deeply disagree with and it's something that clearly gets to you, I don't understand how you can't empathize with the woman he has harassed. Amy, you're not just some cast member on a show you don't run. You were literally a girl boss, and you had the power to get rid of him. Instead, you kept him on your show because it offered up some diversity in the writer's room.
It's because his views are so different from that of mine and most of the other writers in the room, especially Jesse Klein, who's the head writer of the show. We butt heads, we get in fights because he infuriates us. And the room it's an interesting writer's room because it's always been very diverse with the views in there. We don't want it to just be one-sided. We don't want it to, Jesse and I have such similar sensibilities that it's good to, it feels very positive to have someone in there saying, well, this is from the male perspective, and not that Kurt is but he is the most male, like the most out there perspective possible. Kurt's my friend. I love him. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't read his crazy rants.
So having a sexist internet troll who was also, sorry, an idiot in your writer's room is what you constitute as diversity? As the millennials say, woof. But what really did it for me was the now deleted Lenny Letter interview that took place during this whole thing. Amy, for one, defends Kurt's right to be an internet troll as if that was, the problem, his right to be an internet troll. Second, she admits that she has lots of friends like Kurt, who she describes as degenerates. And then as she displayed in that Charlie Rose interview, X put upon because people were understandably disappointed in her. She feels that she's built up enough goodwill and therefore should be completely free of criticism because she told some jokes and wrote some sketches. So, shut the fuck up. Have I earned any goodwill with you guys? Do you believe that I feel that rape victims should be shamed on the internet? Have I built up any sort of goodwill? Can we focus on the What about the guy actually raped? How about that guy? One of the worst comments she makes is when she expresses frustration over the fact that Kurt isn't even a rapist. Why are you guys acting like he has saved someone? He's not Bill Cosby. So there you go, guys. Unless he's a predator, you do not get to get mad at him for harassing you. The bar for men is in hell, as we know. You're either a or an internet troll. What I love, though, is when Lena says something along the lines of like, well, don't they know that you've been essayed? And what's funny is there were multiple women who had come forward against this comedian that Kurt was ruthlessly harassing people for. And she did not talk about them at all or even mention that story. She did eventually come out to say that she was disappointed in him, but she never really addressed the gravity of the issue. Nor did she apologize for her shitty response. Saying, haven't I built up enough goodwill? Bitch, what do you mean? You were clearly reluctant to even speak out against him and have defended him in the past multiple times and have admitted that you knew he was an asshole and harassed people. Who gives a fuck about your goodwill? At least Lena Dunham was somewhat able to humble herself in public and put out an apology even if it didn't actually lead to her learning anything. She was able to do that. Amy said, fuck y'all, I'm a good feminist because I said so, and I have proven that to you ungrateful fucks with my pussy jokes. Do you not remember the pussy jokes? How dare you associate me with my friend and colleague who I knew was a piece of shit and did not fire? Here's the thing. Amy is allowed to defend Kurt if she wants to. She's allowed to have kept him in her writer's room, she's allowed to not care about the women he's harassed for years, and she's allowed to still care about him. But something Amy doesn't ever seem to understand is that while all of that is true, people also have a right to be angry at you because of that. Just because you say you don't share his horrible opinions doesn't mean people can't associate him with you. He was your friend, and at your big age, you can choose who your friends are. And if sexist internet trolls are the ones you've chosen, don't be surprised when people drag you for that. When it comes to Kurt Metzger, Schumer has a point. The amount of attention that was diverted to Metzger as an inside Amy Schumer writer with bad opinions probably would have been better spent on substantive issues, like the state of culture in comedy or the accused stand-up himself. If Schumer had stopped at the important observation that celebrity buzz can detract from substantive reporting or real action, we all would have been on the same page. However, the comic's attempts at self-preservation pushed her to take a stronger defensive stance towards Metzger, and that's where things get dicey. Schumer is arguing that Metzger is not a racist, and that those are the people we really should be worrying about. Schumer feels the need to stress this point. She wasn't supporting a racist, so everyone should get off her back. Now, we can all get on board with this sexual assault priority list. They are a more pressing problem than non. But Schumer is doing a selfish disservice to her feminist fans by trying to downplay Metzger's vile actions through relativity. Apologists might not commit crimes, but they contribute to an environment where survivors feel unsupported and unsafe. To return to a less egregious example of Amy's selfish feminism, the whole Glamour magazine thing. To recap, Amy, who previously was pretty tight with Glamour at one point, was featured in a chic at any size plus size issue for Glamour in 2016. And Amy was like, I'm a size 8. She posted her dissatisfaction and disappointment with Glamour on Instagram. But in an interview with Jimmy Fallon amidst this controversy, she did what she always does. Deflected by saying that labels shouldn't define us.
What I learned is that people really don't like being classified as by plus size. We don't need these labels. We don't need them, you know? It should just say what size you are, right? Why?
She also has a whole chapter about this in her book where she brings this up. She says, the plus size label sends an us versus them message. These are the special, magical plus size ladies who are still lovable and beautiful despite their size. Why create categories for women's bodies? Plus size is a pointless term that implies anything above a certain size is different and wrong. When Glamour put my name on the cover of their Chic at Any Size issue without asking me, I was frustrated because I don't want to be a part of that message. Sorry, I just don't believe that this is the real reason why she was mad. I mean, take this with a grain of salt, but I don't know. She initially stated on her IG post that part of why she was mad was because she wasn't plus size, which was true, but then pivots to saying, we don't need these labels, man. They're just keeping us down. Like, girl, what? I'm not saying there isn't maybe a conversation to be had about the term plus size, but I don't think Amy, someone who at this time was not plus size, should be leading that conversation. From what I can see, it feels like Amy wants to eliminate the plus size label because she doesn't identify with it. But she still feels in her heart of hearts that she has the most unconventional body in the world. It's fitting that she was on a podcast called Not Skinny But Not Fat, because that is the group of women that she wants to speak to. That isn't inherently bad, but what grinds my gears is that people with this body type, mainly during the late 2000s to the 2010s, were seen as realistic representations of the average woman when they're just not. All bodies are real. I'm not saying their bodies aren't real, of course, but they are not average, you know? The average woman in America is plus size, and they were not. Again, not to say that they can't add anything to the conversation around body image, nor does it mean that they can't hate their bodies. But Rachel Bloom, for example, has been able to reflect on this and admits to having some body dysmorphia because she was literally a size 4. She wants the praise that comes with identifying as a feminist and a body positive symbol because she feels she's done so much because her show touched on women's issues. But her feminism, like Lena's, is kind of performative. Here, as with Glamour Chic at Any Size Edition, Schumer only wants to be a part of feminist conversations when they suit her. Schumer has built her career on off-color jokes, including those that reference her size and even rape. Schumer is a feminist comedian, but only on her own terms, and that's my problem with her. While she bristles at being told what to do or feel, her audience isn't afforded the same consideration. When we react or rail about her material, she recoils and tells us all the ways we've overreacted or misunderstood. It's an unfair double standard, and I call bullshit. It's notable that Amy once had Amber Rose on her show, who was also famous at this time, not just for being the ex-girlfriend of Kanye West and Wiz Khalifa, but for her feminist opinions, and was credited with starting the slut walk, which she absolutely did not. It should not be surprising that Amber, who has spent much of her career pandering to black people and leaning into being racially ambiguous, has now flipped and become the most unconvincing Trump supporter I've ever seen.
I know this because for a long time I believed those lies, so I'm here to set the record straight. The first person I knew who supported Donald Trump was my father. I was shocked. My entire family is racially diverse, and I believed the left-wing propaganda that Donald Trump was a racist. My father said, "No, he's not, Amber. What are you talking about?" I realized Donald Trump and his supporters don't care if you're black, white, gay, or straight. It's all love.
Yeah, that definitely didn't sound like she had a gun pointed at her. In a Reddit post about Amy Schumer, which contained less hateful comments and more thoughtful criticism and some defensive responses of Amy, someone towards the bottom of the comment section referred to Amy Schumer as pretty racist. And the replies to this comment correctly pointed out that that isn't the main reason her loudest haters despised her, at least not pre-2023. We'll get to it. The same can be said for Lena Dunham. No one really mentioned the Aurora Perrineau situation when discussing the downfall of Lena's career. This possibly could be due to the fact that Aurora has never spoken out about this publicly, it seems, and the fact that Lena did issue an apology a year later. But it still seems a little weird that that didn't really come up as much. It's almost like people forgot about it. Lena and Amy both share a lot of similarities. They have both been accused more or less of the same things: white feminist antics and hipster racism. But what is white feminism?
White feminism. She's white-centered. She cares about upholding white supremacy in this hierarchy of believing that whiteness is the center and the end-all, be-all. And if white men are up there, white women are just below them. So anytime they don't get something that white men get easily, they're like, what the f-? Ignoring the fact that there are plenty of other women that are not only women, but are also not white. And so the things that they have to deal with, these intersections of their identity that we like to talk about, intersectionality, yeah, that gets ignored with white feminist antics, okay? There's also a lack of empathy with white feminist antics for anything that does not directly benefit white women or the women that look and are classed like them.
In her book, Feminism is for Everybody, by the late great Bell Hooks, she says in her chapter about feminist class struggle, from the onset of the movement, women from privileged classes were able to make their concerns the issues that should be focused on, in part because they were the group of women who received public attention. Public attention is a key word to keep in mind here, because this blind spot among white feminists is a part of almost every women's movement since the history of history, dating back to the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, which I'll be so surprised to learn excluded black women, like literally did not invite their asses. Many white women suffragists at the time worked in solidarity with black people, particularly black women, and were abolitionists. From the Grimke sisters to Prudence Crandall, a teacher who at 30 years old opened an all-girls school for young black girls in 1833. Even Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton at one point before everything went to shit identified as abolitionists. That is until they realized black men might get the right to vote before they would, and that did not sit right with them. They were flabbergasted, baffled, befuddled, as they would probably say at the time, and indignant. They felt that they had spent years helping black people become emancipated. They felt that they had did their part, and their reward was that you get the right to vote before us?
Oh, this won't do.
Although this may remain a question for politicians to wrangle over for 5 or 10 years, the black man is still, in a political point of view, far above the educated white women of the country. The representative women of the nation have done their uttermost for the last 30 years to secure freedom for the Negro, and as long as he was lowest in the scale of being, we were willing to press his claims. But now, as the celestial gate to civil rights is slowly moving on its hinges, it becomes a serious question whether we had better stand aside and see Sambo walk into the kingdom first. This is the Negro's hour. Why should the African prove more just and generous than his Saxon compeers? If the 2 millions of Southern black women are not to be secured the rights of person, property, wages, and children, their emancipation is but another form of slavery. In fact, it is better to be the slave of an educated white man than of a degraded, ignorant black one. Just in case you thought they were going to be subtle about it, this ended up causing a rift within the women's suffrage movement. Obviously. Old Liz felt that other white women suffragists had goofed in advocating for the abolition of slavery because now they weren't even going to get theirs, or at least not right away. Frederick Douglass, King, who was a lifelong supporter of women's suffrage and women's rights, disagreed with Susan and Liz. As Angela Davis lays out in her book, Women, Race, and Class, she says, "In light of the widespread violence and terror suffered by black people in the South, Frederick Douglass's insistence that black people's need for electoral power was more urgent than that of middle-class white women was logical and compelling. The former slave population was still locked in a struggle to defend their lives, and in Douglass's eyes, only the ballot could ensure their victory. By contrast, the white middle-class women whose interests were represented by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony could not claim that their lives were in physical jeopardy. They were not, like black men and women in the South, engaged in an actual war for liberation. And indeed, for Southern blacks, the Union victory did not really mean that the violence of war had been entirely halted. Many white women suffragists, not all to be clear, there were white women at the time who understood intersectionality even before that term was coined officially, but many of them just couldn't wrap their heads around this, and even teamed up with white male supremacists in the hopes of securing their right to vote. So black women got together and formed their own anti-slavery women's suffrage clubs, one of the biggest ones being the National Association of Colored Women in 1896. The first president of this association was Mary Church Terrell, who along with Ida B. Wells formed anti-lynching campaigns after losing their friend Thomas Moss, along with 2 other black men who were lynched in Memphis, Tennessee in 1892. Black women's role in the women's suffrage movement and the history of women's rights as a whole have been overlooked and under-discussed so much that many people do not know about Mary Church Terrell, Ida B. Wells, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, or Anna J. Cooper, and so many more. Who they do know is Susan B. Anthony, who was remembered for single-handedly getting women the right to vote in 1920, ignoring the fact that for one, she did not single-handedly do anything, and 2, black women didn't get that right until years and years later. Black women were fighting for the emancipation of women as well as African Americans altogether in the working class. They were fighting to put an end to the terrorism that was being inflicted upon black people by white racists who were lynching black people left and right. But their fight was seen as separate from women's rights. These white women had one vision in mind, and race muddled that vision and just made things too complicated. And this unfortunately keeps being feminism's Achilles heel. For example, the main focus of the women's movement of the late 60s and into the 1970s was the right to choose. But rarely did it even address the fact that women of color and black women at a disproportionate amount were literally having their reproductive rights stripped from them in the doctor's office with forced sterilizations. If you want to get pissed off, just look up the history of forced sterilization in the United States. Or, if you just want to get really upset and throw your computer out the window like I almost did. Also, it wasn't just women of color, it was disabled people, mentally ill people, or feeble-minded people as they called them, and people who were accused of being promiscuous, typically women, even white women, also fell victim to this disgusting practice that isn't talked about enough. Mainstream white feminists during the 60s and 70s didn't talk about it either. Going back to Bell Hooks, she details how mainstream second-wave feminism failed to address the struggles of poor working-class women of color. These issues ranged from basic sex education, prenatal care, preventative health care that would help females understand how their bodies worked, to forced sterilization, unnecessary cesareans and/or hysterectomies, and the medical complications they left in their wake. Of all these issues, individual white women with class privilege identified most intimately with the pain of unwanted pregnancy, and they highlighted the abortion issue. They were not by any means the only group in need of access to safe, legal abortion. As already stated, they were far more likely to have the means to acquire an abortion than poor and working class women. There's a common theme that permeates throughout white feminism, and that theme is selfishness, and an inability to understand that not every woman shares the exact same struggle. As Bell Hooks explained in her book, white feminists continue to take ownership of a movement that women of color and working class women have put a lot of work into, and their voices were not given the same attention or validity as white middle class feminists. They continue to center not just their whiteness, but their gripes as middle class women who were tired of being housewives and felt working outside the home would liberate them, and presented that fantasy as a freedom for all women, completely ignoring the realities of poor women of color who had been working outside the home under abhorrent working conditions for years and didn't exactly feel like girl bosses. It was not gender discrimination or sexist oppression that kept privileged women of all races from working outside the home. It was the fact that the jobs that would have been available to them would have been the same low-paying, unskilled labor open to all working women. But only privileged women had the luxury to imagine working outside the home would actually provide them with an income which would enable them to be economically self-sufficient. But obviously, we did not learn from this because this is America, where time is a flat circle, and we have to just keep learning the same lessons over and over again. Even after Kimberly Crenshaw famously coined the term intersectionality in 1989, as Khadijah said, the girls were still not getting it. Because after the election of Donald Trump, many white people who are more privileged in terms of class and were still caught up in the myth of a post-racial society, which was a myth that cropped up during the Obama presidency, suddenly came to the depressing and, for them, shocking realization that America was racist. And after it came out that many white women voted for Trump, many people realized, oh, white men are not the only problem here. This election is what inspired the pink pussy hat wearing mostly white women's march of 2017. This isn't to say that all the women who attended this march are like the devil or anything, or that they all intended for the movement to not be inclusive of other marginalized groups. They clearly had good intentions, but it is to say that this was just another reminder that many white women, typically of the middle to upper class, are only willing to come out and protest when something ends up negatively affecting them. Like Trump getting elected was not the beginning of patriarchy or white supremacy or systemic racism, but many of these women came out as if it was. This on some level is why feminism and schmortion, right, are seen as a white women's issue. This has led to black women always feeling as though they have to choose between fighting for their own rights as women and for racial equality that has mostly focused on black men. The major flaw of this type of feminism is this idea that race is invisible when it comes to gender discrimination, not recognizing that race and other intersectional identities can exacerbate that discrimination, and acknowledging that does not take away from your experience as a white woman. It doesn't mean your experiences don't matter too. In her book, Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women That a Movement Left Behind by Mickey Kendall, she says, the myth of the strong black woman has made it so that white women can tell themselves that it is okay to expect us to wait to be equal with them because they needed more. The fact that black women are supposedly tougher than white women means that we are built to face abuse and ignorance, and that our need for care or concern is less pressing. In general, white women are taught to think of whiteness as default, of race as something to ignore. This is why people like Amy Schumer and Lena Dunham felt so comfortable excluding women of color from their work. It's why they felt comfortable making racist jokes, or why it was so easy for Lena to discredit Aurora Perrineau and completely shroud her story. It's why Amy didn't care that Kurt was harassing other women and feminists online. He wasn't harassing her, so she was fine overlooking this very well-known fact about him, despite the fact that it ended up kind of tarnishing her feminist credibility. As Matt Bernstein said on his podcast about Amy Schumer, Amy doesn't care about feminist issues or black people's issues. She cares about Amy. Many people already knew this, but their cries would finally get their vindication in 2023 after Hamas invaded Israel, and Amy, along with many celebrities, decided to voice their opinions about it on Twitter, which is always a bad idea. Many YouTubers and journalists have already dissected this controversy at length, so I'll give you the briefest synopsis that ever briefed. But I highly recommend Matt Bernstein's video and Khadijah Mbo's video on this topic. In short, Amy was, I guess, offended by people who were voicing their pro-Palestine views on the internet, and posted an altered version of the First They Came poem where she claims she stood for LGBTQ people and black people.
What do you think it represents about how Amy Schumer views solidarity with other marginalized groups?
I think it comes across extremely transactional, like a bit tit for tat. I'll only performatively associate with you and your movement, and I'll only perform my allyship so long as I know that I'm going to get the same thing in return. And you know, a lot of the time when you do stand for marginalized communities, it's supposed to be unconditional.
Then posted a racist comic depicting pro-Palestine protesters with signs saying that Gazans essay Jewish girls. She obviously got backlash for this, most notably from MLK's daughter after she shared a video of MLK talking about Israel, and also Asia Jackson, who tweeted the hypocrisy of the whole situation, because there were public figures and even writers who were being fired for expressing their pro-Palestine opinions about the war, like Melissa Barrera. Meanwhile, Amy is on the cover of Variety, hailed as some free speech feminist icon after, you know, posting an extremely racist comic on her IG. She got into a back and forth with actress Asia Jackson, saying she wasn't educated enough on Jewish history. Rich, since MLK's daughter just schooled her about her dad and then talked about how she felt unsafe.
So an actress named Asia Jackson tweeted that it's wild that Amy Schumer could say something like that when Bella and Gigi Hadid had to be so like tiptoey around their statements to make sure they don't lose their jobs and all that sort of stuff. And Amy Schumer slid into her DMs and was all like, "What's up?" She was all like, "Did my post about my people being massacred upset you?" And Asia was like, "Yeah, the Islamophobia." Words were exchanged. Amy Schumer was talking about how unsafe she was feeling, how this girl has no idea what this feels like because she gets death threats. Amy Schumer gets death threats. People threatening her son, doxing her, taking pictures of her house. And Asia is Black and Asian, and her mom is Asian, and she straight up was like, "The audacity of you to tell me that I don't know what it feels like to feel unsafe." You know, it just was really not a good look.
The fact that Amy had the nerve to get into the DMs of a Black woman and tell her to educate herself when she has demonstrated time and time again that she is extremely ignorant about racism to the point that she can't even own up to her own racist tendencies. And then on top of that, to cry about feeling unsafe as if that experience is exclusive to her. This is what Beret Deschanel means when she says Amy Schumer is the poster child for white feminism. I don't want to get into it too much here because I'd rather talk about it in a separate video, but she honestly reminds me sometimes of Alexa Nicholas. I'll leave some videos down below on why I just said that because, like I said, topic for another video. But she gives similar vibes as Lena and Amy. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to talk about your trauma or the bullying you receive online or how you feel people hate you because you're not thin or pretty enough. But like Alexa, Lena and Amy have tied their own experiences to their politics. And they all say that they care about women and standing up for women's issues. But when you look at their actual actions, it becomes clear that they really only care about their own issues. They're more focused on becoming memorable, revered feminist voices who have been unfairly criticized by society. They are always centering themselves in conversations about feminism, body image, and being a survivor. And all of them have become so wrapped up in their own victimization that they are unable to receive any type of criticism, even when it's coming from their own fans who want better from them, without feeling like it's an attack. And I understand why that would be difficult on some level. When you're always at the receiving end of negative criticism, it can cause you to become extremely defensive. And if you don't feel that you've done anything wrong or that you could do anything wrong because you're a survivor or a self-proclaimed feminist, I can see why you'd feel insulted by your fans being rightfully angry at you. But herein lies the problem. No one asked any of these women to be political. No one asked them to make feminism a part of their comedy. No one asked Alexa to be an activist. So acting like you are owed the benefit of the doubt regardless of what you have said or done because you feel you've been such a strong voice for women, that alone is reason enough for skepticism. You are not owed anything. And people do not have to overlook your misdeeds because it makes you look bad. Identifying as a feminist or even a survivor doesn't make you some kind of saint. It does come with responsibility, not pure exoneration. The things you have been lambasted for should make you look bad because you've all done some weird, fucked up shit, and that pushback you got from your fans should have led to some self-reflection and learning. But both Lena and Amy, especially Amy, have proved multiple times that they are not willing to learn anything. And if you are not willing to reflect on your actions, if you're not willing to listen to the people who you claim to represent and care about, you should not be seen as some feminist icon, and you should not be put up on a pedestal either.
It's what you mentioned before about how white feminism, kind of one of the hallmarks of it is like the individuality of it and the sense of self. And it's like Amy Schumer, I think sometimes talks about women's issues, but I think a lot of times she's just talking about Amy Schumer's issues.
Totally. And I think something that can be often, I feel like, frustrating about the women's rights movement or like just feminism in general as a like blanket concept is that a lot of people take it to mean like, okay, this is about me because I'm, let's say, a woman. And it's like, no, it actually has teachings, it has tenets, it has debates within it, it advocates for so many different types of communities, it should be intersectional, but because I am a woman, I don't actually have to look into any of that. Like, I am just a woman, so I'm inherently a feminist. And it's like, I do think actually it takes some work to be a feminist. I think it takes learning, you know? And I think she just makes it clear that she hasn't really done that, or she's been very selective in the type of learning she's willing to do.
So what does this mean? What do we do with people like this? Cancel them? Write them off? I'm personally not interested in canceling people, especially since rich famous people can't be canceled anyway. Lena Dunham was once jokingly dubbed as the voice of her generation, and Amy Schumer wanted to be seen as a champion for women and women's rights, and it seems she still does. I think at one point they were able to do that for certain women, and I don't want to take that away from them. But we should never idolize anyone so much that it clouds our critical thinking skills, especially when that certain celebrity has used politics and feminism as a part of their platform. You should always be slightly more critical of people who are going out of their way to be a voice for people, or in the case of Alexa, branding yourself as an activist. We need to learn how to do a better job of providing constructive critique towards women without completely absolving them of their shortcomings. People are complicated, people are multifaceted. No one is a perfect victim as much as people would like to believe. Yes, even you watching, you are flawed and complicated. This interviewer saying, well, don't you just always think of Kim in these moments, is laughable, because while I don't like how people continue to scrutinize her body and write articles about how much thinner she is now, like, leave that woman's body alone. Kim is not an unfairly maligned woman. Not every woman who receives widespread criticism is unfairly criticized. And ignoring the reasons people hate the Kardashians is how we end up with these people. Yes, as ContraPoint says, we are more vicious towards women than we are of men, and that is definitely a problem. But that doesn't mean that they haven't done anything wrong. Two things can be true at the same time.
But it's important to remember that haters are not the same as bigots. Being mean or rude or even abusive is not bigotry unless it's tied to a history of oppression or a backlash against a movement of equality. So no, Mike Huckabee, homophobic is not a slur. And no, David Silverman, the word racist is not like the N-word. And no, Joanne Rowling, bigot is not a slur. TERF is not a slur. And being canceled on Twitter may be a form of abuse, but it's not a form of oppression.
But there is a conversation to be had about the staggeringly different things we condemn men and women for. It shouldn't be lost on anyone that the things male celebrities are canceled for tend to be far less defensible than the things women have been canceled for. For most women, we're all just walking on eggshells. For men, they usually, not all the time, but usually they have to do something provably awful in order for people to finally be done with them. Like P. Diddy, known for screwing over other musicians, didn't get his official cancellation until a video of him abusing Cassie had to be leaked in order for many people to finally believe her abuse claims and condemn Diddy. As much as white women like Amy and Lena have been given the benefit of the doubt, they are not redeemed as much as we are always willing to redeem men and give them chance after chance after chance, even when they have admitted to doing awful things, when there is evidence of them being abusive. We still want to hold on to our men, and it's just not something you see a lot with famous women, especially non-white ones. Look at how quickly everyone turned on Lizzo. Not that it wasn't justified, to be clear, but it is notable that we are more quick to drop women, people of color, LGBTQ people, and actually cancel them, while men who have been accused of doing awful things will still have a devoted fan base willing to defend their every action and will harass and launch hate campaigns against people who criticize them. A less appalling example would be Olivia Wilde. The way she got dragged during the press tour for Don't Worry Darling over some shit that really wasn't our fucking business was so insane to me. Now, unfortunately for some feminists like an Amy Schumer, this typically gets read as men are terrible, so women should be allowed to be terrible too. And that's not what I support or believe. I am not trying to engage in whataboutism necessarily. I'm not pushing for more harassment towards men instead of women. I just think, it's something we should think about more moving forward. While I deeply dislike Alexa Nicholas, she wasn't totally wrong when she pointed out how many of the people who supported the Free Britney thing are being a little performative and fake. It's easy to redeem women from the past and uplift them as victims of a misogynistic culture, but it's also easy to fall back in the same pattern when you haven't actually unpacked or internalized sexism. What I think we can take away from all of this is that there is more to feminism than just talking the talk. As Roy said in that Matt Bernstein video, it takes actual work and learning to be a feminist, not just some cute label you slap onto your own self-involvement. Feminism isn't about just you, it's about everybody. To close on a quote from an actual wise woman, Lena Dunham isn't the voice of my generation, and Amy Schumer isn't either. We deserve better than that.
Agreed.
Well, we still have Rachel Bloom.
Right before we broke up, he was like, Amy, why are you so shy? You have a beautiful body. And I was like, oh my God, you're so cute. You think I don't want you to see me? Thank you so much.